Good morning, everybody. We should be 5 by 5 because the stuff's just been sitting here. We did this yesterday evening, and I just left the stuff hooked up, so it should be good to go, but, maybe not. So, if not, can y'all let me know or give me a 5 by 5 or something like that? 10 Bears, howdy, how are you doing? Diane H, good morning. Rebecca Evans, Kaiser one, good morning. Colleen, yeah, can somebody give me a 5 by 5? Thank you. Zombie Pumps. Ginger, good morning from Sweet Home, Alabama, home of the rebuilding Tide, right? Crimson Tide. I think they're in rebuild mode. So we'll give it a few minutes because, again, uh, got to do these when I can do them. And so there's very, very, very little warning up front on these. And I just got a lot of stuff to do today. I'll be downtown in Mayberry in case y'all happen to be there. Doing a little bit of shopping and stuff like that, a little walking around. Leslie, how are you doing? Be more ready. But we do have a serious prepping topic that we're going to get to here shortly. Brian Berg, what's up? How are you doing, McBean? Cobra, aka the man known as Mike McDonald, I think, if I remember that right. U.S. Patriot. Yeah, that's the Steffel. Good morning. That's the plan, at least. And I may actually do a little bit of filming while I'm there for the members only day that's coming up. I don't know. My wife had also mentioned going to some Amish stores, which are in the total opposite direction, about an hour away from Mayberry. So I don't know. I'm going to film something while I'm there, wherever there happens to be. Debbie, good morning. Oops. Billy Rose, Blossom Beauty, good morning. J954, how are you doing? Appreciate you being here again. So, yeah, let's get into some serious prepping stuff. What's up, Trout on Dry and Lewis Taylor? So, I don't even remember what I titled this. I think it was Survivalism in America during the big one. We all know the big one is coming. Nikki Bright, how are you doing? Um, but opinions vary on what the big one is actually going to be. I'm resisting the urge to do the Sanford and Son impression when he always had the big one, right? I love that show, by the way. But the big one is coming at some point. Now, this can be what we were talking about yesterday evening. If you haven't seen that, go check that out at some point today if you got time. We were talking about Islam in America and how it's taken over France now, and that wave of Islam is beginning to take over the United States. But it could be something totally different. We could see an EMP. We could see nukes. I don't. It's still not very high up on my list, but it grows a little bit higher by the day, right? So the point is we're going to see something big at some point, and I think some point soon, probably post election. People are still asking, do I think there's going to be an election? Yes, I think there's going to be some sort of an election. It may look like a mess. We may see neither candidate. We may see one or both being replaced. I have no idea, but I do think they're at least going to go through the motions. The militarist says civil war. Maybe so. Maybe so. Um, So what I wanted to talk about, and I was telling the folks yesterday about this, we're going to get into bags, rucksacks. I brought along one, and when I brought it, I said, "Oh man, this one's way too heavy." I'm glad I grabbed this one because that's this morning's message. Rucksacks, bug out bags, um, get home bags, and I also call these A to B bags, meaning, well, let me go through and explain each one because, again, we may have new people here. Bug out bag, when I think bug out bag, I'm thinking long term. I'm thinking I've got to go somewhere beyond here, get myself and my family to safety, and we're going to be there for a while. Okay. Bugging out, right? As opposed to bunkering in. A get home bag is quite different because a get home bag is you're stranded on the road somewhere. And I'll explain to you in a minute where this concept and this idea came from. I saw a really good video that I'll let y'all know about in a second. But get home is you just have the essentials that you need to get your butt back home. You're avoiding the threat by getting back home and bunkering in as opposed to bugging out. An A to B bag. I don't know if I coined that or not. What's going on, ENC Gunny? Good morning. But point A to point B bag basically is if you're playing like you have two locations. Some people have said, John, I got all my stuff in a storage building, or I'm going to be going to a family member's home, or I've already got a cabin out in the woods or something like this. So you have to grab that bag, and that bag, it's essential that you have stuff in there to get you to point B because a lot of stuff can happen along the way. So we're going to break down through all of these bags. And I got to say this as a disclaimer here. If nylon or cotton or the topic of bug out bags terrifies you, this may not be the video for you. I don't want to scare you in any way, shape, or form. Son, it's too early in the morning for that. I ain't here to fearmonger nobody. It's a discussion about bug out bags. But again, if you have a phobia when it comes to bug out bags or nylon in general or cotton or whatever wool, please don't blame me. Please don't say I'm fear mongering. I'm also not here to sell bags this morning. Most of you probably already have one anyway, right? So I saw a Battle Box video. So they review their gear. Y'all know I work with Battle Box and stuff like this. Great box this month, by the way. But anyway, they post other videos, and they've been posting these videos where they do different scenarios and stuff. And they did one recently on an EMP. In other words, the grid is down long term. And Brandon, who is the spokesperson for them, and another guy that works there, they actually enrolled in a class. It was like a 2 day long class where a survival instructor who specializes in EMP and grid down walked a group. I think there was a group of 8 or 10 people through what the first 2 days is going to look like as you're bugging out, and what you need to be look for and stuff like this. And I thought it was a really good video. I'll try and post a link to it here in a little while. Again, not trying to sell you on BattleBox or anything, but it was a good video. Of course, they were using their gear and stuff like this. And I think some mistakes were made in the video as well, being objective. But they brought up a really, really good point. So, again, Brandon, who is freaking awesome, Current 1776, he's the spokesperson over there. He does a great job. He was complaining about the weight of his bag. And this is after about an hour or so of rucking with it on his back. He said this thing is way too heavy. And I think it was 25 or 30 pounds. And this really got me thinking, the bag weight. The bag weight, what is in the bag. I have proof positive here. I have a really, really bad habit of overpacking things. I'll forget stuff sometimes. Y'all know that if you've been here long term, but I overpack. And I think probably a lot of people have the tendency to do the same thing because most of us have a lot of gear. We can't wait for the opportunity to use that gear. So we throw it all in a bag. This is probably 50 pounds back here. And I didn't realize it because it was packed last year. So I got to go through this thing and I'm going to go through the other bags too. But, what is the ideal? Let's get to the speed round real quick. How much should a bug out bag weigh? Because again, opinions are going to vary. What do y'all think in chat? Is it 50 pounds? Fab Welder 1, welcome to your first live chat. Congratulations. You have found us. Not easy to do in 2024. Some people will say 15% of your total body weight. Having watched the video and watched Brandon and him struggle, they were saying we need to get our bag down to about 20 pounds. And I thought, man, that's good, but that's kind of light. Like you're going to have to do some serious cutting at that point for a 20-pound rucksack. Like you're going to have to be extremely smart about what you're putting in that bag. It makes sense because especially if it is a bug out bag, you're going to be carrying it a lot. and that is going to wear you down over time. Of course, the better shape you're in, the longer you're going to be able to carry this thing. But nobody wants to carry a 50 or 60-pound pack all day long if they're walking all day long. 20 pounds is a lot easier. So I want to start with the bag itself. Again, not here to sell you any specific bags. I've got different brands, different colors. I do try and stick to the olive drab greens. Um, I think I have a tan one, but I don't even have it packed out right now, and I have a couple of black ones. I have a really nice black one, as a matter of fact, but I don't know what's in it. Again, I got to go through these bags. They've been packed a long time ago. They're all too heavy, I think. The number one thing when I'm looking at a bag, and there's several things, obviously the price, okay, which we're going to get into shortly, but is it comfortable? I have experienced both. Okay. Right now, the packs that I have are pretty comfortable when I have them on the back. There's padding between the bag and the back, and also the straps are padded on all of mine now. But I've gotten some in the past that were not, and they were not comfortable, to be honest with you. So this is something that I am willing to pay a little bit more money for in a bag. J954, thank you very much. Just my 2 cents. If it's just point A to point B, no stops, 24 hours, water socks, basic IFAC, lots of ammo. Yeah, it depends on that situation. Snacks, bag should have a cummerbund, 40 pounds max. 40 pounds, yeah, if you're just carrying it for 24 hours tops. Yeah. Appreciate that very much again, and good morning to you. So, comfort, you know, I've said this in the past and it holds true. You can go to the Goodwill. Bro, you can go to the Goodwill and you can sometimes find backpacks that look like crap, but they're intact. Old book bags and stuff. I've said in the past, you can use a Dora the Explorer book bag. If that's all you have, that's all you have. But I am willing to pay more for something that is comfortable and well built. And to level with y'all, one of my bags I got brand new, the really nice black one. The other stuff I've actually bought used. I bought on eBay, or I bought from surplus shops and things here locally. And they're not new, but it's like half the price of buying it brand new, and they were in really good shape. I'm looking for something that is water resistant. To my experience, none of them are waterproof. They're not truly waterproof. If it's raining hard enough, you're going to get some water in there at some point. So you want to make sure the stuff that's inside that you need that is valuable is also like in we use freezer bags, the Ziploc freezer bags. And the other thing that I want to add before we move on is zippers. Most of the time when I've had stuff fail on me on a bag, whether it's a cheap bag, I actually had a pretty expensive bag. Of course, again, I bought it used. It was a oh my goodness. Can't remember the name of it now right off. It is a special forces bag, but it was, I want to say, the irony here, right? I think it was a French special forces bag or something like this, but I had a couple of zippers that just weren't working anymore. And I was like, man, this sucks. No plastic zippers, Oops says. Absolutely. So zippers, especially if you're buying these things used, check them. Use them, be rough with them for a few minutes to make sure that they are absolutely working. J954, thank you. Bag should be 100% gray, man. No molly, camo, etc. I don't know about that. I think it depends on the situation. Again, I have a black one. It has the American flag on it, but if I truly wanted to go gray, man, I could take it off. It looks like a laptop bag. Um, but at the same time, I really, really, really like the molly webbing, and you know, I like the idea of being in the woods and the bags not standing out and stuff like that. So I think it again, it's situational. If you're trying to get out of Brooklyn during a massive event, yeah, you don't want to stand out. You don't want to have a Marine rucksack, with the frame on your back and stuff like this. But on the flip side, as long as you can carry a Marine rucksack and it's packed, light enough and everything, if you're out in the country or you're in a wooded area, hey man, that's perfect, to use something like that. So, um, zippers, and again, getting into it, actually, I want something that I can easily attach stuff to the outside of this bag. Because what I've noticed with bags now, I did at one time have a used marine rucksack, and that thing was freaking huge. It seemed like it never ran out of room, to the point where I could barely carry it. I overpacked it, had the frame and everything. But what I've noticed with most bags, they start to run out of room a lot faster than you think inside, like the capacity. And so I like the idea of attaching stuff to the outside. Kelly Rambo, how are you doing? Bushcrafter, Virginia Bushcrafter, what's up, brother? Um, so they have Molly. I mean, they have different ones. They have Molly. I think they have the Alice. If I'm not mistaken, the Alice is popular with the Vietnam crowd. And, I don't have anything against the Alice per se. I just prefer the Molly webbing. You know what I'm saying? That's me. Some people prefer the Alice, and that's fine. It is what it is, as long as you can attach stuff to the outside. And also, if you're attaching stuff to the outside, make sure it's not clanging around. Metal on metal, stuff like that. I've had to use duct tape. You can use electrical tape and stuff like that to stop the sounds and stuff. Rebecca says mine. Wait a minute here. Mine looked like a Ninja Turtle shell on my back, but thankfully we downsized mine. I'm glad you're here because we're going to be talking about tents as well. This came up during the battle box video. Again, I'll try and post a link to it later. It was a really, really good video. There was a lot of good information in there, but also, again, I think a couple of mistakes were made. I think that 20-pound pack's kind of light for bugging out during an EMP. It's just not enough stuff coming with you. So, what should be in your bag? Again, it's going to come down to the purpose of the bag. Like J954 was saying earlier, if you know it's just a point A to point B and you've got all your stuff at point B and it's just going to take you 24 hours to get there, what you have in your pack is probably going to look far different than if you're heading off into the woods and you think you're going to be there for 6 months plus. Because then, that's an extended amount of time versus 24 hours. So it really does matter what the purpose of the bag is. So just keep that in mind. Um, I think every item and every ounce of every item would be the way to put it counts. Every single ounce counts. Um, Bringing us to tents, Rebecca and Dynamite and others. This is one of the mistakes I think that was made on the battle box video. So when they packed theirs out, they didn't bring tents. Now they were going for 2 days. So I get it. It was a 2-day class. It's the middle of the summer. They're in Georgia. They're not really worried about it. But they were going to train for an EMP. And as you know, if we get hit with an EMP, it's going to last longer than 2 days. And so the loadout that they had for sleeping, which again for 2 days makes total sense, they brought hammocks and they brought tarps. They brought camo tarps, really good ones, the oversized tarps. So that works. That makes sense for 2 nights. You can hammock camp, no doubt. It gets you off the ground, so the creepy crawlies are not on you. The tarp can be used to keep the weather off of you in case it's raining or something like this. But again, that's Georgia. That's in the summertime. All right. During an EMP, I mean, this stuff, yeah, would likely be decades. Milton Root says it's going to be a long time, and if it's a long time, I don't want a hammock and tarps. I want a decent tent at that point. The issue is a decent tent weighs typically weighs quite a bit and is going to take up a lot of room. Somewhere in West Texas. Good morning. How are you doing? So it's not something that I'm going to put inside of the bag. This is why attaching, to the bottom of the bag or something like this is paramount here. But you're still going to be carrying that additional weight. And then you start getting into tent size, Rebecca. Dynamite. They for those that don't know, they have a massive tent. I mean, it looks like the Taj Mahal or something. It is really nice, but it's not something I would want to ruck around for 12 hours a day, packed up and stuff like this. So, um, every ounce must count. Even when it comes to tents, some people are still going to prefer the hammocks and the tarps. Other people are going to prefer tents. For me, depending on the weather, I have a tent that is it's called a tupic. It's like a teepee. It's literally a 5-minute setup. You lay it out flat. It's circular. You peg it into the ground. You go inside. You raise the tent pole on the inside. There's one pole, and at this point you're good to go. That's not going to survive a heavy thunderstorm where there's a lot of wind and stuff like that. You would have to tie the top off. I think there's a loop on top that you can tie off to a tree branch or something so it's not coming down, but they're better tents. So just keep that in mind because again, we're sitting here talking about 20-25 pound bags that you're going to be carrying all day. How much more are you going to add in terms of a tent? You know, you can add 10 more pounds, 15 more pounds, whatever the case may be. So you have to have multiple ways to make fire. It is unforgivable, in my opinion, as a prepper, not to have multiple ways to make fire because every way that I'm aware of takes up very little room and it's very lightweight. Whether you're doing the ferrocerium rods, whether you're doing Bic lighters, you can do a bunch of Bic lighters in a freezer bag. You can do storm-proof matches, whatever. I've seen and used aim flames, whatever the case may be. They don't weigh a lot, they don't take up a lot of room, and fire is life. You literally need fire to survive, especially long term. And you need ways to purify water. Fire can help you with that, but you're going to need other things along with that. You need multiple ways to purify water. Again, fire is going to help you with that. Purification tablets do not cost a lot of money. They do not take up a lot of bag space. Um, I saw, I went back, I watched the Battle Box video. They were using the Grail presses, which are really fancy looking tumblers that purifies it within 10 seconds or something like this. Um, Thank you. I appreciate that, Frog Dad. Videos like this really make me ponder the skills, not stuff approach. You need stuff, but I'm one of the few channels that will tell you can get by usually with cheap stuff. There's a few things I ain't cheaping out on, which we're going to get into, but most of it you can cheap out as long as you know what to look for. So, they were using the Grail presses, which are awesome, but it's gonna take up bag space unless you've got it on the outside of the bag. These things weigh half a pound. You're getting into at some point that how many presses do you have before you have to change the filter, this sort of thing. Um, so it is what it is, but have multiple ways to do it. Um, I'm not a fan of a few things when it comes to bug out bags. Not a fan. And I'm gonna ask y'all a speed round real quick. In your opinion, what is the most overrated and most underrated items in a bug out bag? Because I'm getting ready to give you my most overrated item in a bug out bag, and then I'll give you my most underrated. Of course, you go all over the place with it. There's no one certain answer here. Uh, while I would encourage that, it depends on where you're going to be. If you're going to be in an area that like the back of your hand, you may not need that, at least short term. Now, if you're out there for 6 months, hey, yeah, you might need it at that point because you may have to move. Underrated water filtration. Hopefully not, because people going to die or they're going to get really, really sick to their stomach. If they're underrating that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? Several people are saying that underrated life straw, overrated axes. Maybe on that one, Gary. Which we'll get into it shortly, but I think you either have to have a decent axe or a decent foldable saw. I don't know that you necessarily need both, unless you're building a massive fire. Good morning, Ryan. How are you doing? Yes, Stephanie Lake, we are live. We are live. Can you believe it? Canned food. Overrated. Okay. Firearms. Underrated. A space blanket. Yeah, like they used to be 99 cents. I don't know how much they are now. The Mylar blankets, the emergency blankets. Underrated, trauma kits. Overrated is a flashlight. I'm going to pretty much agree with you on that. It's not my most overrated, but yeah, they're overrated. So for me, backpacking stoves are probably the most overrated. I like them. I have several. They're fancy. You fold them. They look really nice. But it's just as practical to drag some decent sized rocks around into a ring and start a fire, if I'm being honest, and you can save $100, $50, whatever the cost of the packing stove is. Plus, you don't have to carry it around. I know it does not add a ton of weight, but you're talking a pound or two for a decent one that you're adding to the pack. The Virginia Bushcrafter. Yeah, I haven't bought any in a while. We've got some, but when I bought them, they were 99 cents. They were the Walmart brand, Ozark Trail ones, I think. Just the basic ones that look like when you set them up, they look like a triangle, so to speak. But he's saying they've went up in price significantly. So they probably have. I haven't checked in a while, to be honest with you, brother. Um, the most underrated. This is really tough. Uh, I wanna say either a bandana or toboggan. Toboggan on your head like a beanie, not a toboggan sled. People always ask, "Isn't that a sled?" Um, but I would probably go with a decent, like, oversized bandana, decent quality bandana, because it's not taking up Um, I mean, how much does a bandana weigh? Realistically, a couple of ounces. You know what I'm saying? It has multiple uses. You sprain an ankle, or you can use this to kind of filter the big junk out of water before you boil it. I mean, it has all kinds of different uses, right? So for me, that's probably an underrated item. I'm not a fan of batteries, anything battery related in a bug out bag. I would rather see stuff that is solar, if I'm being honest. Somebody was talking about flashlights and stuff a minute ago. Solar is just a better option. As long as you get a decent quality one that you know is not going to fail on you. I don't like carrying a bunch of batteries around because a shemagh is also great dynamite. For those that don't know, a shemagh is kind of like a bandana, but it's more of a scarf. It's a really thick tactical scarf would be the way to put it. It has multiple uses as well. It doesn't weigh a lot. Um, just not a fan of batteries in general because you're carrying weight that at some point soon is going to be dead weight. You know what I mean? And it's just I don't like the idea of them. Too many clothes. I'm not a fan of too many clothes. I do think you need extra clothes, especially socks and underwear. But too many clothes begins to eat up the space inside of your bug out bag. Angel, how are you doing? Good morning. And stealth mode, good morning. How are you doing? So, not a fan, of I know this is going to sound crazy, but I love hoodies. I really do. But I don't like hoodies inside. Maria says not bugging out. We're going to get there toward the end. Not a fan of throwing a hoodie inside of a bag, though, because it eats too much space up. I prefer, if I'm going to throw something like that in a bag, very thin, very lightweight rain jacket or something like that. It takes up a lot less room. You can get them that'll keep you fairly warm as well. And I know this is going to be controversial, but body armor. Some people use body armors on the bags, or they wear the vests with the body armor. Hey man, if you're going into a battle or you're house to house fighting, makes total sense. If you are bugging out and you know that you're going to be walking 12, 14 hours a day or more, I don't know that it makes too much sense at that point. I guess it's one of those things where if you get hit, you wish you would have had it, right? But at the same time, man, you're going to demolish your body carrying all kinds of weight around. Plus, I don't like the fact that they expire and you have to replace them at a certain point. I never really was a fan of it, to be honest with you. Um, yeah, that's kind of my take on it. You know, if you're going to bunker in, fantastic. You know, if you're going to be wearing it from the living room to the back deck or something like this to check the place out, or on a four-wheeler or something like that, um, it does. Now, I don't know exactly, how many years before, but they say that the integrity of it begins to degrade and you have to replace it eventually. Um, but yeah, if you're around the house on four-wheelers and stuff, that's one thing. But if you're walking from county to county, I don't like the idea of wearing it and having to carry that extra weight. So, in my opinion, and there are plenty of these out there for sale. Again, I'm not here to sell them to you. You can go to Amazon, Walmart. Some of the bigger Walmarts may have this. Um, yeah, there you go. John Decker says these ceramic plates have a shelf life. Now, again, I don't know exactly what that shelf life is. I'm not even going to pretend to know because I don't have body armor. I'm not a huge fan of it. But there got to be some experts in chat that know about this stuff, right? So I know some of y'all got it. You don't have to out yourself, but if you happen to know the shelf life of the ceramics and stuff, if you can drop that in chat, I would appreciate that. You'd be helping some people out in chat. So, not a fan of the pre-made bug out bags. Have y'all seen these like on Amazon, Walmart? Honestly, I don't know if Target has them or Bass Pro or anything like that. But I'm just not a fan. I think that they overpack these things. I think that they put way too much nonsensical stuff in there. Um, okay, that's fair enough. Dynamite says I take expired armor over none. Roman says that I hear ceramics are 10-year shelf life, basically. Um, Ceramic armor has a shelf life after it gets compromised. So yeah, I mean, there's some ins and outs to it, and again, I know that they're fans of it. I'm just not one of them personally. So, and I do have vests and things, but they have the molly attachments, and it's to carry gear more so than it is to carry plates and stuff. So, not a fan of the pre-made stuff because it's overpacked, my opinion. A lot of the stuff is cheaper made. I'll give you one example, and I do not like this one bit. Most of the pre-made bags that you're gonna buy, first of all, they're gonna be more expensive. They're like $200 plus. And you go through and you look at the stuff that's inside, and it's all really basic, and it's generic, and it's cheap, and you're like, even if I bought my own bag, I could do it for $75 cheaper, number 1, but a lot of these have the bagged water in there, the purified bagged water, and I'm just like, I think you should carry water for sure in a bug out bag, but, maybe 1 large bottle of it and then a steel cup because you're gonna be purifying water and stuff like that. I don't wanna carry too much water weight with me, if that makes sense, especially in the bag. Um, because you have to be able to move. The whole idea of yeah, exactly, Dynamite. The ones that I've seen anyway, there may be excellent ones out there, but most pre-made, the bags are overpacked with junk, and that's so they can make a few more dimes off of you and really put stuff in there that you're never gonna use, that weighs a considerable amount once you start stacking all the junk up. So, you have to be able to move. That's kind of the concept of bugging out. Bugging out is getting out of Dodge, so to speak. Well, to get out of Dodge, you gotta be able to move, you gotta have mobility. As somebody is saying, you gotta have speed and mobility, Self Mode is saying. And Of course, there's important stuff that you need to have in there, but you don't want to pack it with a bunch of nonsense, and you don't want a company to pre-pack it with a bunch of nonsense so they can make more money. I'm thinking, and this is one of the things that I'm not cheaping out on. Here are the three things I was telling somebody earlier I absolutely will not cheap on when I'm thinking about bugging out long term. Okay. Four things actually. The bag itself. I'll buy used ones all day long if they're priced well, if they're in good shape. But I'm checking the zippers. They better be rain resistant. I mean, they better be in really good shape. A tent. This thing does not have to be a massive tent, but it has to be a good enough tent that it's not going to fail. I'm checking the reviews on the tent. Are the zippers any good? What's the setup time look like? Is it water repellent? This sort of thing. Um, a great pair of boots. Sea bass. Happy birthday then. Had no idea. Happy birthday. Um, a great pair of boots. They've got to be waterproof. I prefer they be broken a little bit before you're marching 12, 14 hours a day in these things, right? But a really good pair of boots. If you cheap out on boots, you're going to be hurting because once you lose your feet, that's it. Once you lose your feet, you're done for a while in terms of bugging out. And a bushcrafting knife. Knives are knives, right? Some people prefer flippers, some of them, for EDCs. If I'm bugging out, I want a legit bug out knife, or excuse me, bushcrafting knife to bug out with. I'm not trying to go out there with the flipper. I've got some really nice flippers, $150 flippers. I'm not trying to split wood with these things because they're going to fail. They've got hinges and things that are just not going to hold up like a bushcrafting knife. You know what I'm saying? I want something that I can beat up, something where I'm hitting the handle, splitting wood, this sort of thing, something that I'm going to be able to sharpen over and over and over again, and I'm willing to pay more for a good bushcrafting knife in that situation. Yes, you can go out there with cheaper knives, but in my opinion, most of the time when it comes to knives, you're going to get what you pay for. Um, Having said that, last speed round of the morning here. Give me a dollar estimate. What is your total amount that you are willing to pay for a bag, boots, and a knife? A solid bag, a solid pair of boots, and a solid knife. What's your top dollar amount that you're going to pay for that? We'll see who's cheap now, son. K-Bar is excellent. K-Bar is excellent. Um, they have a trench knife that is fantastic. Oklahoma Jim says 500. Red Dog 600. David 100. Okay. Fat Man Prepper 500, 500, 650. Maybe I am cheap. Gary Garrison 500, Steph L 400. For two of us, $2,500. Oh wow. Oh wow. Take somebody with you when you go to the surplus store so they don't take advantage of you. My personal opinion, I think $350 to $400 is probably the peak amount that I'm going to pay. I'm going to pay the most for a pair of boots. 150, maybe $200 for the boots. I know I can get a good solid bushcrafting knife for $100. You know what I mean? So that leaves a little bit left, but all in all, I think $350 to $400. You absolutely can pay more and get better quality stuff. There ain't no doubt about it. But I feel pretty confident that if you shop around $350 to $400 is going to get you the quality stuff that you need to last for at least a little while. Again, the K-Bar, somebody mentioned the K-Bar, the trench knife is $80 to $100. I think there's one that comes with a leather marine case. It's a World War II-esque. I think it is a little more expensive. It's like $100, but the K-Bars that I was looking at a while back, they were 80, 85-ish roundabout. Brand new. I mean, they just had generic cases. So, yeah, you can definitely land a good solid knife. So, let's get into essentials for your rucksacks. M16 bayonets. Ain't nothing wrong with that. The trench knife is similar, made by K-Bar, but yeah, good bayonet's a good bayonet. So add anything you want to at this point. We've already been over fire, water, bedding. So when I say bedding, am I talking, tent, or do you want a hammock? If you do a tent or a hammock, you're probably going to want a sleeping bag. Especially, this is a mistake I think they made on the Battle Box video. If it's long term, you're going to need a climate bag inside of that hammock. You can get away with it at that point. Without a climate bag, you're going to freeze your cojones off um, come wintertime. Now, I don't know about Georgia, but here you will freeze your cojones straight off. Because if you've ever slept in a hammock, they're breezy. You can feel it underneath you, and especially in the fall and stuff like that. So I would add a climate bag if you're going to do it that way. Stainless steel cup. When camping, once upon a time, mistakes were made. We got very lucky. We did not realize. I let me take that back. Caveman James did not realize. We were innocent until proven guilty. Myself and my wife's uncle. Caveman James did not realize we were dealing with. He had a cup. It was a stainless steel cup, but it was double walled. Y'all know what I'm saying? It was insulated in the middle, and he was trying to boil water in this thing. And it was literally on the fire for 25, 30 minutes. He's like, it's not boiling. And we're looking like, James, it's not going to boil in that. So when I say stainless steel cup, I'm just talking about a single walled stainless steel cup that you can boil water in. Okay. Uncle Jack is doing okay. His little boy is in school now and raising Cain. So he's wearing the daddy hat more times than anything else. It did not catch on fire stealth mode. That's what was so weird about it. The entire bottom was solid black. Um, it's a wonder this thing did not go off like a stick of dynamite. A small cook pot. Now, some people are going to prefer a pan here, and I don't know if this is history talking. Yeah, you can do a pan, but I still prefer a cook pot. Back during I think it was the Revolutionary War. Dynamite, you probably know more on this than I do, so correct me if I'm wrong. They traveled in groups of like 5 or 6, and they had one stock pot, and for every 5 or 6 people. And they guarded this thing with their life because that was the only way they were cooking. I think with a small cook pot, you can do a lot of stuff. You can, for example, you can use it to boil water and boil more water than a steel cup as opposed to a pan. You can cook a lot of stuff in a cook pot. So I just prefer it for that reason. It does not have to be huge. Some people will say, and I get it, makes really good food, the cast iron, but man, it's heavy. You know what I mean? Ain't nobody trying to carry cast iron bugging out. A hard water bottle, just something that once you purify the water, okay, you want to strain it and then you want to boil it and then you want to let it cool and then you're going to put it in this hard water bottle. It's just something that you can grab. I mean, you can use a canteen, but the big mouth hard water bottles, they're just easier to fill up in this way. You know what I mean? Wow. My handwriting sucks so bad. I'd put down dry socks, but looking at it, y'all hold your ears for a second. I thought it said dry sex, and I almost said that. Man, I got to work on my handwriting. Dry socks. At least one pair, if not 2 pair, because again, when you need your feet and your feet aren't able to go because they're blistered up or they're soaking wet and you don't have any dry socks, that is going to slow you down. Okay, so have dry socks. And again, have great waterproof boots. That's going to help prevent it as well. Food. Let's talk about food for a second. Gotta have it, right? Again, it's situational. If it's 1 or 2 days, MREs will work here. I think if it's longer term than that, you got to start looking at other options. Beef jerky, trail mix, hardtack, canned food to a degree. If you're really smart and, you don't mind reusing things, which you shouldn't, you can get the bigger beef stews, you can eat the beef stew, and then you can actually use the can as a makeshift cook pot and stuff like this. So there are ways to do it. But again, even with the food, you've gotta consider the weight, you've gotta consider the space it's taken up in the bag. You can get by with freeze-dried stuff, it takes up less, it weighs less, but then you're going to need more water, right? So trail mix is an awesome option, protein bars, awesome option here, I think. A wool blanket is always in the bags. It does take up space, it does kind of weigh more than I wish it did, but a wool blanket will do you right. It'll keep you warm, it's water repellent, you can do a lot of things with it. Small first aid kit. Now, some people are gonna say, "Nah, man, you need an IFAK, you need something huge." And again, it's situational. Depends on how much fighting you think you're gonna be doing. Most people that are trying to bug out are trying to avoid conflict. I do think you need a small first aid kit. I don't you can build your own out, you can buy a pre-made one. There's some good backpacking first aid kits and stuff like that. Um, Soap, toothbrush, and toothpaste. Gotta have it. Deodorant, okay. You'd prefer it, but you can use a bar of soap under your arms and wash up and all that. But take care of your teeth. You don't want a toothache out there. You know what I'm saying? And you don't want to be too rank. J954, thank you. Must have survival food. His upside down Snickers. Yeah, I guess for some people it is. I'm not taking Snicker bars, so a multi-tool. A lot of people say Leatherman. Maybe you can't afford a Leatherman. Maybe you can just afford a cheaper multi-tool. Just throw one in a bag. You never know when you're going to need something off of this thing. Um, when it came to foldable saw or axe, I actually went with the axe here. And let me explain why. I think the axe has more of a function, at a camp than a foldable saw. There's less to break on an axe. Plus, if you have a decent sized bushcraft knife, you can actually use that to process the smaller firewood. It takes a little bit longer, but then you're not having to carry a foldable saw. Ask me how I know, because we've forgotten a foldable saw once upon a time, and this is exactly how we got by that night. It sucked. We didn't realize until 20 minutes before dark. We figured it was going to be real easy. We'll process the wood real fast. Oh my God, where's the foldable saw at? We had the axe. Okay, so that's good. We got the axe. I had the Mamu, which is a huge bushcrafting knife. We got by with it just fine. It wasn't ideal, but again, you can cut down on bag weight. Solar flashlight. I think you do need a lighting option in there, but again, I'm going with solar. Bandana. I threw that in there just because, again, as Dynamite was saying, you can go with the Shemog or whatever the case may be, or multiple bandanas. Obviously, there's so much more that you can add. And Rocky Mountain Live, or excuse me, Rocky Mountain Vibe. Not trying to sell BattleBox this morning, but if somebody is subscribed to BattleBox, they're getting an excellent professional slingshot in the box this month. I'm pretty excited about it. Um, yeah. So I'm just saying it's awesome. Surgical tubing and everything. So there's a lot more that you can add to the bag. And no bug out bag is going to look the same, I think, for two people, two totally different bug out bags. But just remember that space will become an issue at some point in the bag. Weight's bad enough. All right. Again, this one's 50 pounds. There ain't no way I'm carrying this thing. I got to go through here in a little while and find out when I get back from Mayberry or wherever I go, find out what's in this joker and start cutting some weight. But space is an issue. Um, collapsible fish trap. Okay. Yeah. Right now I'm using a flipper knife. It's a nice one. There's a really nice one coming in the box this month. But yeah, always EDC and something. But I've been using this same one for 3 or 4 months now. I really like it. No two bags should look the same. All right. Some of you are going to be trying to get out of downtown Detroit during a collapse situation. Let's just say the lights go out. We don't know if it's weeks, months, what, right? Going to be chaos. So the people who are smart in Detroit, they're trying to get out. But people in rural America are also maybe trying to get out, so it's going to look totally different. Um, and there's really an art to building out. I'm not saying I'm Bob Ross over here, son. Again, I have no idea what's in this one. We're going to find out soon enough. But there's an art to building one out. There really is, because again, I'm not Bob Ross, but I've gotten better over the years and added less and less and less nonsense every time I've repacked them. Just go through them occasionally. Straight up, go through them occasionally. But the main point today, in getting to somebody's comment earlier, yeah, Frog Dad, downtown Detroit may be a ghost town. I have no idea. I'm nowhere near Michigan. Even if bunkering in is your plan, even if you're one of these people that say, I'm going to die in my castle, you never know. You never, ever know what the circumstances are going to call for. You may have family show up out of the blue that you really love and care about, and you need to protect them. You realize the threat is too much for you to handle and protect them. You realize you have to bug out. Okay. Everybody needs a plan B. Everybody needs a bag that is ready to go. Real quick, I'm going to dig in. I'm not going to go through this entire bag, but I'm curious, and then we'll close it down. I'm going to see what in God's name is weighing so much in this bag right here. Look, this is what I'm talking about here, guys. I don't know if you can see that. See how the inside flap is water resistant right off the bat. It's that kind of stuff that I'm looking for. Fishing kit. I'd say that's one of the main culprits. Wool blanket. It's heavier than I remember. Oh man. Hold on real quick. See what's in here, and then we'll get to it. Toothbrush kit. Tactical toothbrush kit with toothpaste. But I just found something I've been looking for a hot minute. What a way to close it down, son. What y'all think? I've been looking for that. I've been looking for that Prepper Nation flag. Y'all don't even know how long. What it's doing in here, I don't know. I'm bugging out and announcing to the world, apparently, that this is Prepper Nation's camp. I don't know what I was thinking, but whatever. I threw it in there probably so I wouldn't lose it, and ended up losing it. It is what it is. I appreciate everybody being here this morning. If you don't mind, shoot a thumbs up on your way out the door. It does help the channel, helps people find us over here at Prepper Nation. Y'all take care and God bless.